Good morning. This is Dr. Hansa Das, Department of History, Nirmala College, Ranchi. The topic for today's discussion is the inevitability of criticism in historical research. This paper was presented by me at the UGC Human Resource Development Center, Ranchi University, Ranchi, sponsored refresher course in research methodology in social science, which was held from 2nd February 2018 to 22nd February 2018. So here we are going to talk about the inevitability of criticism in historical research. The element of criticism is crucial to historical research, but before understanding criticism, we need to understand what historical research is all about. So, historical research is a systematic inquiry or investigation into the past to discover facts or revise the known facts. Now, two important factors in historical research are credibility and validity. First is credibility and second is validity. Therefore, there are techniques and guidelines for using historical sources. Now, what is criticism in historical research? Criticism is the tool by which the credibility and validity of a data are established. It helps in identifying historical values. It is an insulation which will make historical research safe. It is a part of analytical operations carried through the entire process of thesis preparation. So, in the entire process of thesis preparation, criticism is a very important tool, and until and unless a historical research work has passed through criticism, the validity and credibility of that research comes into question. Now, there are two types of criticism. So basically, we understand criticism as a tool by which the credibility and validity and authenticity of a historical text is confirmed. Whether the historical document which we have in our hand is a fake document or is a real document. All these things have to be known before we move on into reading that particular historical document, and that is why criticism is very important. Now, there are two types of criticism, and in fact the entire process of criticism which makes a particular historical research work credible and valid, the entire process is known as analytical operations. And analytical operations consists of two types. First is called external criticism, and the second one is internal criticism. We also refer to external criticism as heuristics or textual criticism, and internal criticism is also referred to as hermeneutics or interpretative criticism. Now, first, let us discuss and view what external criticism or heuristics is all about. Heuristics is a Greek word. It has been borrowed from the Greek language. Let us see what external criticism, what role does it play in historical research. So the objectives of external criticism are, first, to find out the authenticity of the document, then to check the credentials of the document, and therefore before examining the contents of the document, to make sure that the document itself is a genuine one. What we normally do is that we pick up a historical document and we start looking into its contents. But before that, there are many other credentials which have to be checked and cross-checked. And this is the work which external criticism or heuristics actually does. Now, what is the necessity of using heuristics in historical research, or what is the necessity of external criticism? Why do we use external criticism? Now, there are chances of historical resources being tampered. So, a historian has to make sure that a counterfeit, spurious, or fake document has not fallen into his hands. Herein lies the importance of external criticism, which is also called textual criticism or critical scholarship. Now, the task of external criticism is mostly scientific. It does not involve writing of history, but merely textual criticism in order to eliminate all chances of forgery. So please remember, it is very important that external criticism or textual criticism does not involve the writing of history. It is meant only for checking the credentials of that particular historical document. It is meant only for checking the authenticity and validity of the document, historical document, which we have taken in our hands. So basically, there are three jobs of external criticism. We have already established that external criticism aims at establishing the authenticity of a document. So three jobs of external criticism. First is establishment of authorship of the document. If the author is not trustworthy, the information we possess would also be untrustworthy. So there should be clear proof that the author is the same person as claimed in the record. So to determine the authorship and to ensure that the authorship is correct is the first part of external criticism. The second job of external criticism is determination of place of document, from where it originated. Now this would indicate the circumstances, setup and surroundings in which the document was drawn up. Hence helps in assessing the importance of the evidence. The place from which this document originated is also important. And the third important job of external criticism is the fixation of time of the document, if possible the exact date, month and year of writing. So there are three jobs of external criticism: establishment of authorship, determination of the place, and third, fixation of the time of document. Now the job of external criticism or critical scholarship would be over if the author, place and time of the document are established. That is, if the authorship has been proved to be correct, if there is proper place and proper time of the document, then the job of external criticism ends here and now. Now at this stage, the only the credentials of these three elements are checked without going into the detailed contents. So now the problem of authenticity is solved and the job of external criticism is over. So once you have established that the historical document has the right author, it has mentioned the right place and it has mentioned the time of publication, then the job of external criticism or textual criticism ends then and there. Now external criticism naturally leads to internal criticism. The entire story about external criticism is over once we have established the author, date and time. Now external criticism leads to internal criticism. The task of internal criticism is more complicated as compared to external criticism. The job of internal criticism is to scrutinize the contents of the document for knowing how much of it is true and how much false, for finding whether contents of the document can be accepted or not, and this is also called interpretative criticism. So as I said before, that the job of internal criticism is more complicated than external criticism, because in external criticism you are only checking the credibility of the document in terms of author, place and time. But hermeneutics or internal criticism is checking the content of that particular historical document, and because it checks the contents of the document, therefore it is also known as interpretative criticism. Okay, now there are two operations involved in interpretative criticism. The first one is positive interpretative criticism and the second one is negative interpretative criticism. Once a particular historical document has passed the task of external criticism, it is now subject to positive interpretative and negative interpretative criticism. Now let me describe in very short what is the difference between positive and negative interpretative criticism, and then we will evaluate these two types of criticisms in detail. Differences between the two. Positive interpretative criticism analyzes the content of the document. Negative analyzes the conditions under which the document was prepared, number one. Number 2, positive criticism, to know what the author really means by making a particular statement. Negative, to verify whether the author has what the author has said conforms to what really happened. And third, positive criticism, to get at the literal and real meaning of the author's statements, whereas negative criticism is to eliminate the possibility of error in the author's statements. So these are the two aspects of internal criticism or hermeneutics. Okay, now positive interpretative criticism. The document has passed the stage of external criticism, and now it is subject to positive interpretative criticism. Two stages are there. The first stage is to understand the literal meaning of the document, and the second stage is to understand the real meaning of the document. Now let us see what is the difference between literal and real meaning, and what are the problems which a researcher faces in understanding these two meanings. Literal meaning, that is whatever is written, taking it by the words which have been mentioned. So to understand literal meaning, first of all, the most important thing that you need for understanding literal meaning is language of the document, because historical material lies scattered in different languages. So every word has to be determined with reference to the language of the time, and because historical knowledge is available in different languages, unless we know the language, we will not be able to understand what basically the document is carrying. Real meaning, this is important because there is the possibility that the author might have concealed the real meaning under the cover of an allegory, symbolism, analogy, etc. This is not easy. Getting to know the literal meaning is easy if you only know the language, but the task of real meaning is more difficult. This is not easy. After getting at the real meaning, the job of positive interpretative criticism is over. So once you have understood what is the literal meaning, and then you have also deciphered what is the real meaning, the job of positive interpretative criticism ends then and there. Now begins the task of negative interpretative criticism. Now what is negative interpretative criticism? The purpose is to ward off the danger of falling into errors and to eliminate statements which are false or erroneous. Now, researcher must accept every fact as true only after he has good reasons to do so. Okay, so basically negative interpretative criticism is trying to eliminate the errors which are found in a particular historical document. Now, there are two kinds of errors. I repeat, negative interpretative criticism aims at eliminating the errors which have been made in a particular historical document. And let us now see what kind of errors are made in writing a historical document. So, the first error that is made, it comes from the good faith of the author, and the second error that comes is from accuracy of the author. So negative interpretative criticism has two tasks. First, inquiry into the good faith of the author and inquiry into the accuracy of the author. This means that if a mistake or an error is being found in a particular historical document, that error could be because of the good faith of the author, or that error could be because of the problem of accuracy. Now, errors of good faith are committed where the author has not deliberately attempted to deceive or mislead others. Following are the errors of good faith. For example, motive of gaining some personal advantage for himself may lead the author to commit error. For example, we have official documents of Badni, Nizami, Abul Fazl, etc. Now these people, they suffer from errors of good faith because they were paid agents of the monarchs, therefore representing them in positive colors. Second, the author is placed in a situation where he is compelled to violate the truth. For example, when he has to draw up a document in conformity with certain rules, customs, traditions, etc., like rigidity of the caste system, dowry system, sati system, etc. Author has his own views but cannot express them. Then personal prejudice of the author. Because of personal prejudices of the author also, he is tempted to make errors. For example, his fancy, his likes and dislikes. For example, if he is well inclined towards a person or event, he would praise it, otherwise condemn it. Another thing is, the author suffers from patriotic prejudice. Patriotic prejudice means that he desires to please the public and therefore conforms to the morality or fashion of his public. Now we come into the inquiry into the accuracy of the author. That is, when errors are made because of the problem of accuracy. So errors of accuracy happen when the author is very sincere in recording what he believes to be true. But the problem is that the source of information he has used is defective, because of which errors become inevitable. So errors of accuracy can be detected by putting up certain questions. We can identify that an error of accuracy has been made when we are able to answer the following questions. First, does the author make an observation himself, or does he depend on reports furnished by others for him? In the latter case, there are more chances of error. If the author has collected all the information himself, and if he has used the information collected by others, there is a great difference between the two, and in the latter case there is every possibility of an error being committed. Number 2, has the author made observations under conditions which were not normal? For example, is the author writing under conditions of fear or hallucination or illusion or prejudice? And number 3, whether the recording is done immediately or at a later period. For example, if a recording is done at a particular time and there it is recorded, then the error of accuracy might not occur. But if the author is using information which has been recorded a long time back, then there is every possibility of an error of accuracy being committed. So we can conclude by saying that criticism helps in establishing the credibility and authenticity of a document, thus making historical research safe. So what we have come to know is that criticism is inevitable in historical research, and until and unless a historical research has passed the task of external and internal criticism, it cannot be called a valid historical document. You have to pass the task of external criticism. The author, the date and the time must be clear. Then we come to negative interpretative criticism. The literal and real meaning should be known. And finally, we have to check into whether the historical document is falling into an error of good faith or an error of accuracy. So this is what criticism is all about. Criticism in historical research. Without criticism, historical research is highly under doubt. Thank you.